I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who found himself in this position. My name is Jake, and I'm a 32-year-old graphic designer living in a quiet suburb with my wife, Amanda. We've been married for 5 years, and while every relationship has its ups and downs, I always believed ours was solid. Sure, we had our little arguments, who does, but nothing out of the ordinary, or so I thought. Lately, though, I had noticed some changes. Amanda had become more distant, more secretive. At first, I wrote it off as stress from work. She's a nurse, and shifts can be brutal. But then there were the late nights, the unexplained absences. I started to wonder if I should be concerned. Last Friday was the tipping point. I had a long week at work, and when I came home, I was looking forward to a quiet evening with her. I walked in the front door, and the first thing I noticed was the smell of wine. Amanda was in the living room, looking a little too cozy with her phone, glancing at it, and then back at me like she was hiding something. "Hey, babe, I'm just finishing up some stuff for work," she said with that tight smile, the one that never reached her eyes. I shrugged it off. Maybe she was just wound up from a long week. As the night wore on, I decided to grab a quick shower to freshen up. When I came out, Amanda was in the kitchen, her back turned towards me. I heard it, a muffled sound, not the usual clattering of pots and pans, but something else. It was low, rhythmic, and unmistakable. I froze, feeling the blood drain from my face. Was that moaning? My heart raced as I tiptoed closer to the kitchen entry. Amanda was on the phone, but it was the tone of her voice that sent my mind spiraling. She was giggling, flirting. "Oh, come on, you know how much I love it when you do that," she said. My stomach dropped. I held my breath, not daring to interrupt. After a few agonizing moments, I retreated back to the living room, heart pounding, mind racing. I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that I was completely in the dark about my own life. Eventually, Amanda joined me, her cheeks flushed, hair slightly disheveled. "What's wrong, babe? You look like you've seen a ghost." Right there, I made the first mistake. Instead of confronting her, I played it cool. Just tired, I guess. I didn't want to raise her suspicions, not yet. The next day, I decided to dig deeper. I waited until Amanda was at her shift, then I went to the drawer where she kept her phone charger. I knew I was crossing a line, but curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed her phone and with shaky hands unlocked it with the code I had memorized. What I found made my stomach turn. Text messages, a series of steamy exchanges with someone named Ryan. The messages were explicit, filled with innuendos and promises of meeting up. My heart sank. I put the phone back before Amanda could get home, my mind racing. I had to confront her. I had to know if this was real. I was angry, hurt, and confused, but I was also ready to face the truth. When she finally walked through the door later that evening, my heart was pounding in my chest. "We need to talk," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. Amanda looked up, surprise etched on her face. "About what?" she asked, feigning innocence. "Don't play dumb with me, Amanda. I know about Ryan." Her expression shifted. The surprise morphed into something more defensive. "What are you talking about?" I took a deep breath, feeling the anger bubbling up. "The texts, Amanda. I saw everything." Her eyes widened, and for a moment I thought I saw guilt flash across her face, but then it was gone. "Jake, you have to understand, it's not what it looks like. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I couldn't believe my ears. The excuses were rolling off her tongue like it was nothing. I felt my heart break a little more with every lie she spun. I was no longer just angry, I was devastated. With each denial, I felt the ground beneath me shift, and suddenly it hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was about trust, about everything I thought I knew crumbling right before my eyes. I needed to gather myself. I wasn't going to let her turn this around on me. I was going to find a way to get my revenge, to show her the consequences of her actions. But first, I had to figure out my next move. As I sat there, deep in thought, I realized that this was only the beginning. I had a decision to make, and it was going to change everything. The confrontation left me feeling raw, exposed. I spent the next few days in a haze, going through the motions of life while my mind replayed Amanda's excuses over and over. "It's not what it looks like," she had said, as if that would somehow erase the betrayal. I could hardly focus on work. My designs felt bland and uninspired. I was a shell of the man I used to be. I didn't want to confront her again just yet. I needed time to think, to plan my next move. I had always prided myself on being a rational thinker, someone who could see all sides of a situation. But now, I felt like I was trapped in a storm and the winds were turning against me. I started noticing even more signs of her deceit. Amanda was often glued to her phone, a nervous energy radiating from her. I caught her texting late at night when she thought I was asleep. Whenever I walked into the room, she'd snap her phone shut and change the subject. Yet, every time I tried to bring it up, she'd call me paranoid, saying I was imagining things. Days turned into a week of this uncomfortable limbo. I decided I needed proof, something concrete that would not only validate my feelings but also serve as leverage. I reached out to an old friend, Tom, who had a knack for tech and a nose for sniffing out the truth. I explained my situation, and he agreed to help me. Tom suggested installing a hidden app on Amanda's phone that would give me access to her messages without her knowing. I hated the idea of invading her privacy like this, but I was desperate for answers. I wanted to know how deep this betrayal ran. If I was going to confront her again, I wanted to be armed with the truth. After a few days of planning, Tom was able to help me remotely install the app on her phone while she was at work. I felt a mix of relief and guilt wash over me. This wasn't who I was, but I was no longer the trusting husband. I was a man seeking justice. The next day, I waited eagerly for Amanda to leave for her shift. As soon as she walked out the door, I pulled up the app. My heart raced as I scrolled through the messages. There were more exchanges with Ryan, some dating back weeks. Flirty texts turned into plans to meet up, and my stomach twisted as I read their discussions about going to a hotel. I felt sick but resolved. I now had all the proof I needed. That evening, I decided to act. This time I was going to confront her with undeniable evidence. When she returned home, I could feel the tension in my chest build. I waited until she settled on the couch, flipping through TV channels as if nothing was wrong. "Amanda," I said, my voice steady but firm. "We need to talk again." She looked up, an eyebrow raised. "About what now?" I pulled my phone from my pocket and showed her the messages. "About these." Her face paled and I could see the panic creeping into her eyes. "Jake, I can explain," she blurted out. I held my hand up to stop her. "You don't get to explain this away. You think I'm just going to sit back and pretend I didn't see this? You're having an affair, Amanda." She opened her mouth to protest, but the words caught in her throat. I could see her scrambling for a response, and I felt a small sense of satisfaction at catching her off guard. "Okay, maybe I've been texting him," she finally admitted, her voice trembling. "But it's just been fun. You know how things have been between us. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Fun?" I echoed, incredulous. "You think betraying your husband is just fun? How long has this been going on?" She hesitated, eyes darting around as if looking for an escape. "Just a few months. I was feeling lonely, Jake. You're always working, and I thought it wouldn't hurt anyone just to flirt a little." This was the moment I had been waiting for, and yet hearing her excuses felt like being punched in the gut. I was furious. "You thought it wouldn't hurt anyone. You've hurt me, Amanda. You've shattered everything I believed about us. You're the one who's always said how much trust matters in a relationship, yet you've thrown it all away." Her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't allow myself to feel sympathy for her. I was too far gone, too angry to care. I needed to keep my emotions in check. "Jake, please, I want to fix this. I will end things with Ryan, I promise you," she pleaded. I shook my head, feeling a mixture of rage and sadness. "No, Amanda, this isn't something that can be fixed with a promise. You've made your choice, and now I need to make mine." The silence that followed was deafening. I realized then that this was not just a fight, it was the end of an era. The woman I thought I knew had betrayed me in the most intimate way possible, and now I was left to pick up the pieces. I thought about how I would move forward. I could forgive her, but would I ever trust her again? Or was it time for a more drastic resolution? The truth was, I wanted revenge. She had taken away my trust, and now I wanted to show her what it felt like to be on the receiving end of betrayal. The storm of emotions raged within me, but one thing was clear. I was done being the victim. I was going to take control of my life, one way or another. Once I had confronted Amanda with the undeniable proof of her betrayal, her pleas for forgiveness felt hollow. I was still reeling from the emotional turmoil, but it was clear to me that I couldn't stay in this toxic environment any longer. I needed to regain control over my life, but I didn't want to rush into a decision until I was sure of my path. The days that followed were a blur of tension. Amanda kept trying to initiate conversations, but I was cold, distant. I couldn't look at her without feeling a wave of anger and betrayal wash over me. I felt like I was living with a stranger, someone who had deceived me in the worst way possible. As I contemplated my next move, I began to think about how I could make her understand the gravity of what she had done. I wanted her to feel the pain I was experiencing, but I needed to be careful. I didn't want to do anything rash, but I wanted to ensure she faced the consequences of her actions. One evening, as Amanda was getting ready for another shift at the hospital, I decided to take action. I had been organizing my thoughts and made a list of all the ways I could confront this situation. The most prominent idea was to engage in a little revenge, nothing malicious, but enough to make her think twice about her choices. I texted Tom, asking him to meet for a drink that night. I needed to talk to someone who understood. Over a couple of pints at our neighborhood bar, I poured my heart out to him about the betrayal, the emotional wreck I had become, and my desire for revenge. Tom was supportive and listened intently, nodding as I recounted the various ways I felt wronged. "Jake, I think you need to hit her where it hurts, but not in a way that breaks you, just enough to make her realize what she's losing," he suggested. His words resonated with me. I thought about how I could flip the script, how I could make her realize the life she'd chosen and what that meant for our marriage. "Maybe you could get back out there," Tom proposed. "Start dating again, have some fun. Show her that you can move on, that you have options." I mulled over his suggestion. It was audacious, but the idea made me feel alive again. I realized that the best way to get back at her wasn't just to retaliate, but to thrive. I could take charge of my life and show her that her choices had consequences. The next day, I signed up for a dating app. It felt foreign to me, but I was determined to put myself out there. I filled out my profile, trying to present myself as the best version of me. I included photos from our hikes, casual outings, and even that time I went skydiving. I crafted a bio that was light-hearted and engaging. I was ready to meet someone new, someone who appreciated me for who I was. As I began swiping through profiles, I felt a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. It wasn't long before I matched with a woman named Sarah. She had an infectious smile and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. We began chatting, and I found myself laughing and actually enjoying the conversation. It felt good to connect with someone who didn't carry the weight of betrayal on their shoulders. Meanwhile, Amanda continued to plead for forgiveness, trying to win me back with grand gestures. She brought home my favorite takeout, made attempts to cook elaborate dinners, and even tried to rekindle the intimacy we once shared. But I was emotionally detached, and nothing she did could erase the hurt she had caused. I decided to keep my newfound dating venture a secret from her. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing that I was reclaiming my life, that I was moving on. Each time she tried to get close, I pulled back and I could see the frustration building within her. A week later, Sarah and I decided to meet in person. We chose a cozy cafe downtown, and as I walked in, I felt a rush of adrenaline. It was a new chapter, one where I could be happy again. When I spotted Sarah, she stood up and smiled, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I felt a spark of joy. Our conversation flowed effortlessly. She was witty and charming, and I found myself genuinely enjoying her company. As we laughed over coffee and pastries, I couldn't help but think about how I had let my happiness be dictated by someone else's choices for far too long. Meanwhile, Amanda continued to spiral. She grew more desperate, more anxious, and I could sense her frustration escalating. I could hear her talking to her friends on the phone late at night, her voice filled with distress. She was losing control of the situation, and I had no intention of stepping in to comfort her. Weeks passed, and my relationship with Sarah blossomed. We went on several dates, and each time I spent with her made me realize how much I had been missing out on. I felt lighter, more vibrant, and I could sense the change in my demeanor. I was becoming the person I had always wanted to be, someone who wasn't afraid to pursue happiness, regardless of the pain I had endured. One evening, as Amanda sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, I decided it was time to reveal my hand. I had kept my relationship with Sarah under wraps long enough. I took a deep breath and positioned myself in front of her. "Amanda, we need to talk." She looked up, surprise washing over her face. "What is it now, Jake?" "I've been seeing someone," I said bluntly, watching her expression shift from confusion to disbelief. "What do you mean? You've been dating, just like that?" She stumbled over her words, her composure cracking. "Yes, and I'm happy. I'm finally moving on." The silence that followed was deafening. I could practically feel the tension in the room as she processed my words. "Jake, you can't be serious after everything we've been through," she shouted, her voice breaking. "After everything you've put me through, Amanda. You made your choice and now I'm making mine." In that moment, I saw the anger, guilt, and fear all swirl together in her eyes. I could feel a sense of empowerment wash over me. This was my life, and I was taking it back. The consequences of her actions were finally hitting home, and I wanted her to realize that her choices had led us here. I was no longer the passive husband who would sit back and accept the betrayal. No, I was reclaiming my happiness, even if it meant facing her wrath. As her tears spilled onto her cheeks, I felt a mix of pity and satisfaction. This was the moment where she had to confront the reality of her choices. And as I walked away, I knew that I had taken a significant step towards healing. The aftermath of my revelation hung in the air, thick and heavy. Amanda's reaction was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, and ultimately a sense of desperation. I had seen her strong facade crumble, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a sense of control. I had taken back my power, but that didn't mean I was free from the emotional turmoil that followed. The days after I told Amanda about Sarah were unsettling. Amanda tried to win me back with every tactic she thought might work. She'd text me incessantly, her messages filled with apologies, promises of change, and desperate pleas for a second chance. Each time my phone buzzed, I felt a mix of guilt and relief wash over me. Guilt for the pain I was causing her, but relief that I was no longer tangled in her web of lies. Meanwhile, my relationship with Sarah blossomed. We explored the city together, discovering new restaurants, attending art exhibits, and simply enjoying each other's company without the weight of betrayal hovering over us. Sarah was refreshing, a breath of fresh air in a life that had become suffocating. I found myself laughing more, smiling more, and even rediscovering passions I had forgotten, like painting and hiking. But I couldn't escape the emotional roller coaster spurred by Amanda. One night, as I sat with Sarah at a cozy little Italian restaurant, my phone buzzed on the table. It was another message from Amanda. "Can we talk? I can't keep doing this." The desperation in her words tugged at something deep within me, but I quickly shoved it aside. I wasn't going to let her pull me back into her chaos. "Is everything okay?" Sarah asked, noticing my sudden shift in demeanor. "Yeah, just my ex trying to reach out again," I replied, forcing a smile. I didn't want to burden her with my past. This was our time, and I needed to focus on the present. "I'm here for you if you need to talk about it," Sarah said, her concern evident. "I know breakups can be tough." I appreciated her support, but I couldn't bring myself to dive into the wreckage of my previous relationship. So instead, I changed the subject and shared a funny story from my work. But in the back of my mind, Amanda's pleas lingered like an unwelcome shadow. A few days later, Amanda confronted me in person. I came home one night to find her sitting on our front porch, a defeated look on her face. "Jake, please, can we talk? I just need a chance to explain everything," she said, her voice trembling. I hesitated but eventually nodded. I felt the need to hear her out, even if I had no intention of going back to her. We sat together on the porch steps, the silence between us thick with unsaid words. "I know I messed up," she began, tears welling in her eyes. "I thought I was just flirting, but it spiraled out of control. I never meant to hurt you." I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but I felt my resolve harden. Amanda, you can't just brush this off. You didn't just flirt, you had an affair. You chose to betray me repeatedly. I know, and I'm so sorry. I realize how much I took for granted, she pleaded, her voice cracking. I can't lose you. I can change. I promise I'll do whatever it takes. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my composure. You need to understand, Amanda. Trust is everything in a relationship. You shattered ours, and you can't just glue it back together with promises. It's not that simple. Her face fell, and I could see the reality of my words sink in. I don't want to lose you, she repeated, her voice now a whisper. I remained silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. I felt a pang of sympathy but quickly pushed it down. I couldn't afford to let my emotions cloud my judgment. I had been the one hurt, and I had to prioritize my own healing. Maybe we both need to figure out what we want, I finally said, my voice steady. I can't keep doing this dance, Amanda. I'm moving on with my life. Her face twisted with pain, and I felt a fleeting moment of regret, but I reminded myself that I was no longer the victim. I was reclaiming my life. I stood up, giving her a solemn nod. I think it's best if we both take some time apart. As I walked back inside, I felt an odd combination of relief and sadness. I closed the door, shutting out the chaos that Amanda represented. I was finally ready to fully embrace my future with Sarah, and I didn't want anything to hold me back. In the weeks that followed, I dove deeper into my relationship with Sarah. We began to meet each other's friends, integrating our lives in ways I had not anticipated. It felt liberating to be with someone who appreciated me, who didn't carry the baggage of betrayal. Amanda's attempts to reach out dwindled over time. I occasionally received texts or voicemails, but I ignored them. Each time I felt a bittersweet twinge of guilt, but quickly reminded myself of the pain she had caused. I had to remain steadfast. One evening, while Sarah and I were dining at my favorite Thai restaurant, I received a call from Amanda. I was tempted to answer, but I felt Sarah's hand squeeze mine reassuringly. You don't have to pick up if you don't want to, she said, her expression understanding. I shook my head. No, I don't want to. I'm done with that chapter of my life. Good, Sarah smiled, her eyes sparkling. You deserve to be happy. As I looked into Sarah's eyes, I realized just how far I had come. I was no longer the hurt man clinging to a broken marriage. I was a man ready to embrace the future. That night, as we laughed and shared stories over dinner, I felt a sense of hope and renewal wash over me. But deep down, I knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. I had scars from my past, and they would take time to heal. But I was making progress, and I was determined to keep moving forward. The emotional impact of my betrayal still lingered, but I was beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I would never forget Amanda's betrayal, but I was learning how to forgive, not her, but myself. I had the power to reshape my life and choose happiness again. And as we left the restaurant that night, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace settle in. It was time to fully let go of the past and embrace the possibilities of the future. It was time to stop dwelling on what had been lost and focus on what was to come. As I moved forward with my life, the aftermath of my divorce from Amanda became a distant memory, yet its impact lingered like a faint echo. Sarah and I continued to grow closer, the bond between us deepening with each shared experience. I had learned to appreciate the little moments, the laughter, the shared meals, and even the quiet moments where we simply enjoyed each other's presence. But even amidst this newfound happiness, remnants of my past often surfaced. It wasn't that I was still hung up on Amanda. Rather, I was navigating the complexities of trust. I had always believed that love was simple, but my experience with betrayal had altered my perspective. One evening, Sarah invited me to a barbecue at her friend's house. It was a warm summer night, and the scent of grilled food wafted through the air. As we arrived, I felt a wave of excitement wash over me. I was eager to introduce Sarah to my friends and to show her off. The gathering was lively. Laughter echoed as we mingled with friends. As I watched Sarah engage effortlessly with everyone, I felt a warmth spread through me. She was genuine, and her enthusiasm was contagious. But as the night progressed, I noticed a group of people gathered around the fire pit. They were swapping stories, and I couldn't help but overhear snippets of conversations that struck a nerve. Someone recounted a story about a friend who had been cheated on, and I felt my stomach twist. The words betrayal, heartbreak, and trust seemed to hang in the air, and I instinctively withdrew from the group. I could feel the shadows of my past creeping in, and I excused myself to grab a drink from the cooler. I needed a moment to collect my thoughts. As I stood there, I couldn't shake the feeling of vulnerability. I was finally happy, yet the fear of being hurt again loomed over me like a storm cloud. "Hey, everything okay?" Sarah's voice cut through my thoughts as she approached me, concern etched on her face. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just needed a breather. It's a bit overwhelming, you know." She nodded, her eyes searching mine. "I get it. If you want to talk about anything, I'm here." The sincerity in her voice brought a wave of gratitude. I knew that Sarah wasn't like Amanda, yet the scars from my past still affected how I interacted with her. I took a deep breath and decided to open up a little. "Sometimes I worry about trust," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've been hurt before, and even though I'm happy now, I still feel vulnerable." Sarah reached out and took my hand, her grip reassuring. "You don't have to worry about that with me, Jake. I care about you, and I'm not going anywhere." Her words resonated deeply within me, and I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I realized that I needed to let go of the past to trust again. It was going to take time, but I wouldn't let Amanda's betrayal dictate my happiness any longer. As the night wore on, I found myself laughing again, engaging in conversations and enjoying the company of friends. But in the back of my mind, I still kept a cautious eye on my own emotions. Later that week, I received a text from Amanda. It was unexpected and sent my heart racing. "Can we talk? I need to see you. I've been doing a lot of thinking." I hesitated, staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to delete the message and pretend it had never happened, but I found myself torn. I had moved on, but there was still a part of me that felt a sense of closure was needed. After some thought, I responded, "What do you want to talk about?" Her reply came quickly. "I want to apologize properly. I've realized how much I messed up, and I need to see you in person." I weighed my options, considering what meeting her could entail. I did want to rekindle anything, but I also didn't want to leave any unresolved feelings hanging between us. Still, I had to protect myself. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop the next day. As I drove there, a mix of nerves and resolve churned within me. I wasn't excited about the meeting, but I knew it was necessary. When I arrived, Amanda was already seated at a table, her eyes scanning the room. She looked different, more subdued, almost fragile. There was something about her demeanor that struck me. She seemed genuinely remorseful, and it made my heart ache in a way I wasn't prepared for. "Hey," I said as I approached, forcing a smile despite the apprehension swirling inside me. "Thank you for meeting me," she replied, her voice shaky. "I've missed you." I took a seat across from her, maintaining a cautious distance. "What did you want to talk about?" Her gaze dropped to her hands as she took a deep breath. "I've spent a lot of time reflecting on everything that happened. I was selfish and stupid, and I'm truly sorry for how I treated you. You didn't deserve any of that." I listened, my heart conflicted. Hearing her apologize was validating, but it didn't erase the pain. "It hurt, Amanda. You broke my trust, and it's not something that can just be fixed with words." "I know," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I just wanted you to know how sorry I am. I've been trying to change and do better." I nodded, processing her words. "It's going to take time for me to heal from all of this. I've moved on and I'm happy now, but I can't pretend those feelings don't still linger." Her expression shifted, part relief, part sadness. "I understand. I just hope you find the happiness you deserve. You were always so good to me, and I took that for granted." We talked for a little while longer, sharing memories, laughs, and even some awkward silences. It was clear that both of us had changed, but the respect for what we once had was still there. And while I realized I could never go back to what we once shared, I also understood that closure was essential for both of us. When we parted ways, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't about forgiveness, it was about acceptance. I had faced my past and emerged stronger. I could finally move forward without the burden of unresolved feelings. As I walked back to my car, I felt a renewed sense of freedom. I had reclaimed my happiness, and I was determined to continue building a life with Sarah, a life filled with trust, laughter, and love. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that I had the power to shape my future, and that was more than enough. The meeting with Amanda had been a turning point for me, a moment of clarity that reaffirmed my commitment to moving forward. In the days that followed, I felt lighter, as if I had shed the lingering shadows of my past. I was finally ready to embrace the new life that lay ahead with Sarah. As summer unfolded, our relationship blossomed. We spent weekends exploring the outdoors, taking spontaneous road trips, and enjoying quiet evenings watching movies in each other's arms. Each laugh, every shared glance, and those lingering touches felt like a reminder of the joy I had thought lost forever. One afternoon, Sarah and I decided to take a hike in the nearby mountains. The sun was shining and the trails were alive with the sounds of nature. As we climbed, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The fresh air filled my lungs, and I realized how vibrant life could be when you allowed yourself to truly live. When we reached the summit, the view was breathtaking, an expansive landscape of rolling hills and distant valleys. We stood there, hand in hand, taking in the beauty before us. It felt like a new beginning, a blank canvas waiting to be painted with our shared experiences. Wow, Sarah breathed, gazing out at the horizon. This is incredible. It really is, I replied, feeling a swell of gratitude. I'm so glad we did this together. We shared a moment of quiet reflection, the weight of past heartaches lifted, replaced by the promise of what was to come. As I looked at Sarah, I felt a deep appreciation for who she was, a partner who didn't just fill a void but who inspired me to be a better person. Later, as we sat on a rock, enjoying the snacks we had packed, I decided it was time for a conversation I had been contemplating. Sarah, I began, I want to talk about our future. She turned to me, curiosity dancing in her eyes. What do you mean? I know things have been moving quickly, but I can't help but feel like what we have is special. After everything I've been through, I can genuinely say that you make me happy. I've never felt this way before. Her expression softened and a smile broke across her face. Jake, I feel the same way. You've brought so much joy into my life. I can't imagine not having you by my side. Her words sent a rush of warmth through me. I want to be with you and I'm ready to fully commit. I've let go of the past and I want to build a future together, one where we can trust and support each other. Sarah took my hand, squeezing it gently. I'd love that, Jake. I want to be with you too. In that moment, everything clicked into place. I realized that I had finally found a love that wasn't marred by betrayal or insecurity. This was a relationship built on mutual respect, understanding, and trust. As we made our way back down the mountain, our conversation flowed easily, filled with dreams for the future and laughter over shared experiences. I felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that I was moving in the right direction. In the weeks that followed, I continued to nurture my relationship with Sarah, and we began discussing our hopes and dreams more openly. We talked about traveling, starting a family, and building a life together. The more we shared, the more I felt that this was the fresh start I had been longing for. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I decided it was time to take another step forward. With a mix of excitement and nervousness, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sarah, I said, turning to face her. I know we've only been together for a little while, but I can't imagine my life without you. You've made me believe in love again. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Her eyes widened in surprise and I could see the emotions swirling within her. Oh my God, Jake, is that what I think it is? I opened the box, revealing a simple yet elegant ring. Will you marry me? Tears filled her eyes as she nodded vigorously. Yes, yes, of course I will. We embraced tightly, and I felt a surge of happiness that I had thought was lost forever. In that moment, I realized that the journey through pain had led me to something extraordinary. I had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and fear, but I emerged stronger, braver, and more in love than ever. As we celebrated our engagement, I couldn't help but reflect on my journey. I had learned that love could be complicated, but it could also be beautiful. I had discovered the importance of self-worth and the power of resilience. And as I looked into Sarah's eyes, I knew that I had found a love worth fighting for, a love that would carry us forward into a promising future. With every day, I grew more confident that I was not just moving on from the past. I was building a new life filled with hope, laughter, and endless possibilities.